Hello and welcome to the Kufi Weekly. I'm your host, Kasim Hafiz. So this week started on Monday with the sad news of the passing of Colin Powell. Colin Powell, who served as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Secretary of State under the tenure of President George W. Bush. Colin Powell's story really was an incredible story of, American triumph. The child of Jamaican immigrants growing up in Harlem, he rose to the very top of the United States military, serving his country, and also serving his country as the Secretary of State. The legacy he left, his love and support of Israel, and the legacy he left in America of service will be remembered, and we send our condolences and prayers to his family. Colin Powell once said, to begin with, Palestinians must accept that if there is to be real peace, Israelis must be able to live their lives free from terror as well as war.
Palestinians must accept that if there is to be real peace, Israelis must be able to live their lives free from terror as well as war.
The Palestinian leadership must take 100% effort to end violence and to end terror. What if I told you that today's Palestinian leadership, the Palestinian Authority, the ones that Israel is told are the moderates, that Israel must talk to, are spreading hatred into the minds of their children? And when I talk about that, I mean in their education system. I'm talking about every single Palestinian child being indoctrinated to hate. Wild, right? Completely the opposite of what Colin Powell said. The leadership making 100% effort to end violence and end terror. No. The Palestinian leadership is doing the exact opposite. They are making sure, they are putting in 100% effort that every generation will be full of hate. It's not creating generations for peace, it's creating generations for hate and terror. So what do I mean? What am I talking about? Because I'm sure if you heard that your school, where your children go, or a school locally, were promoting terrorists, people who murder civilians, people who murder women and children as heroes, you'd be questioning it. You really would. So let's have a look. So there have been numerous reports, decades worth of reports, talking about the incitement which exists in Palestinian society, from television, kids' television, to education. And I'm going to focus on the Palestinian Authority today because Hamas are a terrorist entity who control Gaza, but today the PA is my focus. They're the moderates, we're told. They're the ones that Israel needs to speak to and make peace, we're told. Here are just some examples of what Palestinian children are being taught right now. In the grade 4 mathematics books, this is an actual question. The number of martyrs of the First Intifada is 1,392 martyrs, and the number of martyrs of the Al-Aqsa Intifada is 4,673. The number of martyrs in these two intifadas is, fill in the blank with the amount of martyrs. We're talking about people who blew up buses. We're talking about people who murdered women and children. They're being, one, called martyrs. Two, they're being used for grade 4 children for mathematics. It sounds insane, but this is the reality. Imagine growing up with that being your day-to-day schooling. But there's more. Let's look at a grade 7 science book. Newton's second law is exemplified by an image of a masked Palestinian boy aiming a slingshot at approaching soldiers. What is the question that this science textbook, then poses? What are the forces that influence the object after its release from the branch, the slingshot, and the coil? Science is being taught using violence. I mean, it's mind-boggling, but this is happening right now. Furthermore, look, this isn't just about violence, anti-Semitism, anti-American sentiment. In Islamic education, a grade 5 textbook, it says that Jews are referred to as the enemies of Islam in all times and places. Now, if you're a young kid growing up in Ramallah, what are you going to read? If that's what you're seeing, how are you going to read that? You're going to see your neighbors, the Israelis, as enemies through all time. You're going to see the Jews as your enemies because you're growing up with this from grade 5 and before. In grade 12 history, there's an image of the planes hitting the Twin Towers on 9/11. What's the question? How did the USA take advantage of the 9/11 events to impose its hegemony on international politics? Grade 12 history, folks. This is what people are being taught. And you know what's even more disturbing? We are sending $235 million of aid to the Palestinian Authority this year alone. For people who are teaching children to hate. This isn't going to bring about peace. This isn't going to bring about a better tomorrow. Do you think children who are growing up with this have any chance? And we're not even talking about Palestinian TV. Images of young kids praising suicide bombers and terrorists. It's absolutely disgusting. This is, to me, child abuse, plain and simple. But again, no one wants to talk about it. This is the reality. We as Christians need to speak out. We as Christians need to pray for these young Palestinian children who are being abused and used by their own leadership, by their teachers, by the people who are tasked to look after them. We all have a part in making sure that peace is a reality and not a dream. And it's only when we take action, when we are in prayer, and we try to make the world a better place. This is Kasim Hafiz for the Kufi Weekly. God bless.
Thanks for checking out today's episode of Kufi Weekly. If you enjoyed this episode and want to stay up to date with the latest news from the Middle East along with topics involving US-Israel relations, please be sure to like and subscribe. And remember to click that notification button so that you are notified every time a new show is uploaded.